Okay, in the last video, we just described a little bit of the anatomy and physiology, that is the structure and a little bit of the functions of the cerebrum, one of the parts of the brain. Remember, that is only, well, is the biggest part of the brain, but it's only one of the portions of the brain, the cerebrum. So, check. Now we are going to study the other parts of the brain. So we're going to start in this video, we're going to describe the diencephalon. And the diencephalon, I hope you remember this slide, I already used it, is this green area located within, right in the middle of the, in between the two cerebral hemispheres. So I'm going to show you this on my phone so you can see. I think is better than describe it is to see it. Can you see how deep the pink structure? Well, that's only the thalamus, which is the biggest part uh, of the diencephalon, but that's how deep is located. Okay, so this is a posterior view, this is a lateral view, this is an anterior view. So there are pair structures. We have right and left. And this is the inferior view. Okay? So let me hide this. You already know where it is. Now you should be oriented, right? Right, we're right in the middle, deeper to the cerebral mass. Now, okay. The parts of the diencephalon. Which are the parts of the diencephalon? We have red, black. Okay, we have this oval part in here. So this is what I just showed you. That's the thalamus. Okay, then inferior to that, only this triangle in here. This is the hypothalamus. Thalamus, hypothalamus. And not very well seen in here, but this area in here, this is the epithalamus. Okay, so thalamus is the oval area, epithalamus is posterior, hypothalamus is anterior. And most of this, as I wrote in my reminders, most of thalamus consists of gray matter. There's little white matter in there. Now, in here, same thing. This, no. Okay, this oval here is the thalamus. So what is the thalamus? Remember when we are receiving sensory information from our receptors, from sensory neurons, it gets to the central nervous system, right? Spinal cord, and then ascends to, if this information is going to be conscious, is going to reach our cerebral cortex. So it has to pass all of it, all the sensory information, except by the smell. The smells go straight to the brain with no filter. Disgusting. Well, sometimes. But the rest of the sensory information has to stop right here in the thalamus. So this is we call it the relay station. Okay, all the sensory information first reaches the thalamus, and not only sensory, but every information that is going to reach the cerebral cortex, that we're going to be conscious about it, it has to pass by the thalamus. And the thalamus, the way I see it now nowadays, is like a router, right? So all the information gets in here, and the thalamus decides if that information is important enough to go to higher levels. And so we spend, our energy, being aware of that and creating a response to that stimulus, or if it's not important. Uh, so, can you imagine the amount of stimuli that are around us every single second of our lives? We don't get, we're not aware, we're not conscious of everything that is going on uh, around us. Otherwise, it will be really hard for me to make these videos and really hard for you to pay attention to them, because you will be paying attention to the bird that just flew uh, in front of you, or the mosquito that is buzzing around, or the little ant that there is crawling on the floor. So I mentioned a bunch of animals. Well, uh, there's some of those sensory informations that the thalamus decides that it's going to reach our conscious mind, and others are just tuned down so we can focus and concentrate our attention in a subject. So that's the main function of the thalamus. I summarize here in this little square all the actions or the functions. So it relays all the sensory information except the smell. Remember, smells go straight to the brain cortex. Not just sensory information, but any information getting to the cerebrum has to the cerebral cortex, specifically to the gray matter, has to pass by the thalamus. And the thalamus either amplifies or tunes down the signal, so we are or we're not aware of that. And senses, like I said before, is a router. So it's from there the information reaches the specific areas in the cerebral cortex to be processed, associated, and you know analyzed. So that's the thalamus. Easy, right? Well, sorry. Now the hypothalamus. Let me show you in. Let's put in green. We're going to describe now the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is this area, hypo, under or inferior to the thalamus. All of this area is the hypothalamus. And as you can see here, the hypothalamus is connected with, well, let's mention this first. It has this stalk, which is actually, let me put that in another color so we don't get confused with that. The hypothalamus in green is connected with this uh, stalk or stem. There is holding, it's called the infundibulum, and is holding this that you know. You don't know that is you? We have described this before. This is the hypophyseal, the pituitary gland, um, which is, do you remember, that sits in the sella turcica of the ethmoid bone? This is the pituitary gland. It's connected with the hypothalamus. Remember that I call it the commanding wife? This is the one that produces at least, I will say 8 to 10 hormones that regulate the most of the glands of the endocrine system in the body. So regulates homeostasis in the body. That is the internal balance and equilibrium of all our chemicals. Now, as you can see, these two are connected, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. I never like to say, I don't like to say the main or the most important something of the body, but this is one of the major or the more important glands in the body. Now, the hypothalamus produces factors, stimulatory and inhibitory factors that control the secretions of those hormones by the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland controls other glands. Let me summarize that with, or illustrate that with thyroid, ovaries, ovaries. Let's put ovaries. Okay, so we cows have the ovaries right there. Okay, hypothalamus secretes some factors that can either stimulate or stop, halt, inhibit the secretions of uh, FSH and LH, which are the follicle stimulating and luteinizing hormones. Those hormones released in the pituitary gland are the ones that stimulate the ovary to induce a lot of changes that is part of the endocrine system. But if I block the hypothalamus, okay, or if I can block a hormone in the hypothalamus, it will block the production of pituitary gland, of hormones by the pituitary gland that stimulate the ovaries, for example. But this in here, instead of ovaries, it can be thyroid, it can be testes, it can be adrenal gland, and other glands. Okay, that's one of the functions, one of the most important functions of the pituitary gland. Remember, I'm sorry, of the hypothalamus. And remember, I really want to take advantage of this um, image in here, that we said that tumors, mostly benign tumors in the pituitary gland, they grow bigger, bigger, and can compress this structure. Okay, we will see that in a little while. This is part of the optic pathway. So when it compresses that, the first sign, the first symptom a patient complains of is blurry vision. And that's one of the first symptoms of tumors in the pituitary gland. Uh, Remember, this is on the ethmoid bone, so the approach is through the nose. I hope you remember all the things that we have spoken before. Okay, let's keep talking about the hypothalamus. That's one of the functions. Hypothalamus have many functions. In here in the hypothalamus is where our thermostat is. So this is what controls our body temperature. In here we have centers of gray matter that controls thirst and hunger. So depending in the concentration of sodium and other nutrients in the blood, those concentrations are detected by the specific receptors here in the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus sends signals to either eat or drink water or not, depending on the concentrations of those nutrients in and water and nutrients in the blood. What else? This deals with emotions, sexual behavior, and sexual drives. It deals also with, it controls the pattern of, it's called circadian rhythm, and it's the pattern that every human being has of dark and light. This, as you can see, I told you this is part of the optic pathway, and fibers from that coming from the eye delivers information right here to the hypothalamus to let us know it's dark or is or we have light. So those cycles of and light and dark cycles are controlled here, and the hypothalamus controlling our cycles of sleep, awake. Um, what else? In here also we're going to find hormones that uh, are or influence the arousal from sleep. What else? I have a bunch of functions. Let's see. I don't remember all of them. Okay, controls the autonomic nervous system. In here are most And we'll describe this in autonomic nervous system, centers of neurons that controls our heart rate, our heart and respiratory rate, contraction of the heart, so force of contraction, uh, dilation, the constriction or dilation. There is the closing and the opening of airways and blood vessels, so it controls blood pressure as well. All of those functions are controlled in the hypothalamus. Emotional responses, body temperature, hunger and thirst sensations, behavior, sleep wake cycle, endocrine system, pituitary gland, the formation of memory. These hypothalamus receives information from hippocampus and limbic system, and which are other centers or areas in the cerebrum that where we form the memory. ADH and oxytocin, it not only controls the release of hormones by the pituitary gland, but the hypothalamus itself produces hormones, which are ADH is antidiuretic hormone. It's the one that reabsorbs water, that keeps water into our organism. And oxytocin is the hormone released during labor to stimulate the smooth muscle contraction on uterus to get rid of the baby, and also around the nipples, stimulate the contract and stimulate the ejection of milk during breastfeeding. Men, you also have oxytocin. The function is not so clear, but it has something to do with the movement of sperm in the vas deferens in one part um, of your genital tract. Now, that's hypothalamus. The last structure that we're going to describe in here in blue is the epithalamus. And the epithalamus, so we said this in the oval black thing, in black is the thalamus. In green, we have the hypothalamus. And this little part, we're going only to describe one thing on the epithalamus, which is this little gland that is called the pineal gland. Pineal because the cells of these glands resembles a pineapple. What is the function of the pineal gland? You know it. Really? Yes, I know you do. Is the production and secretion of melatonin. Have you heard about that? Melatonin aids the hypothalamus to control the circadian rhythm, that rhythm of wake sleep. Melatonin, what it does is creates the mood to sleep. It's the one that hypothalamus induces sleep, but the conditions necessary to fall asleep are created by melatonin. So usually melatonin, and it has a pattern of secretion that changes throughout life. When we were little babies, we the peak or the higher levels of melatonin are is secreted about 7 8 p.m. at night. So that's why most of the babies at that time they're wasted and they fall asleep very easily. As we grow up and we fall into teenage, preteens, and teenage age, this melatonin starts secreting later and later at night. And I'm telling you, 12, sometimes 1 a.m. And that's what explains why preteens and teenagers fall asleep so late. Actually, there some of the changes in middle school um, schedule has to do with this rhythm of melatonin secretion, also because of traffic, but and also they're trying to move high school schedule to later hours in the morning because at this age kids go to sleep later biologically you know, by biological event, and of course they wake up later. What else? Well, this is the pretty picture, of course, that you have in your book. So this one is, it has color, so it will be easier for you to identify. So this, only this part, this is the thalamus. So hypothalamus is only this triangle in here, okay, the one holding the pituitary gland. And this little thing is the only part that we described on the epithalamus, the pineal gland. Later on, just pay attention to this is a set of blood vessels that we're going to describe later. Okay? So when I say it is in the roof of the thalamus, you know what is the roof of the thalamus, right? Okay, in the next video, we are going to describe the next section of the brain, which is our backup brain. I call it like that. Functions are not like that, but you know, it looks like a little brain back there. So the cerebellum, that's what is next.